the lack of awareness of this feature
Yeah,
set to this day is like completely mind-boggling to me. And it feels like the company's finally at a point where they can begin to market this truly.
totally.
Like to actually make this a selling point of the car outside of Elon posting tweets about it in
Yep,
some respects, right? Or maybe I don't know, like it's or maybe it will create so much demand that I don't even want to go into the sort of the logistics behind if they should or not. But it does feel like anytime that whole button seats sort of discussion that the Tesla community often has is like the best way to sell the car is to put butts in
totally.
seats. It feels like that feature, FSD specifically with V13, has become that. It's like that
Yeah.
has become a core piece of it. Would you agree? Sounds like
I
you
mean,
agree with it.
it's a careful balance for one reason, which is like if you put these layman people who don't understand how the car is going to act in FSD, and you convince everyone that it's like nearly perfect, right? What's going to happen is you're going to have two separate groups. You're going to have the people who are like, I can't believe I've never used this before. Like, this is the greatest thing I've ever used. And you're going to have the people who are like, I had to take over once on like a 40-mile drive or twice, or I had to tap the gas and this sucks and this isn't what I paid for. So I think that Tesla could probably start marketing it as the supervised system, but you have to be really careful because it's like you only really get one like introduction to the world with this.
Yeah.
And if people are like nervous about it, like you're going to lose a big sect of people who never tried it and are like not going to just trust it ever again after, even if it is perfect 6 months later. You lost those people at least for like a year or two
For
until
sure.
their expectation resets.
That's a great point.
So
And this is why I think the unsupervised portion of the software is so interesting. It's because the way they can go to market with unsupervised is such a difference than supervised, right? Because
yeah,
with supervised, you're still putting the ownership of the car in the driver. So you're tying the entire experience of driving to the person behind the steering wheel. So that's if the car doesn't behave at a stop sign properly, around a pedestrian,
yep,
at a traffic light, and in places like New York and New Jersey where people got no patience, it's like you're filled with anxiety because you're like, oh my God, I can't, like, it wasn't my fault, but the person like doesn't care. The car
right. They don't
didn't,
understand. Like I
yeah,
wasn't driving.
yeah, exactly. They don't give a
It's
shit.
like, what do you
I'm trying to
mean you
get to my,
weren't driving the car?
yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think what's interesting about the unsupervised variable is that if from the get-go the car says you may do whatever you'd like, and if I need
Yep,
your help, I will let you know, that severs that responsibility
totally,
from the car. And then the person, if something gets handled weird, they probably don't even know it's happening because they're on their phone
totally. Yeah,
or
100%.
talking to somebody,
Like you
you
don't
know?
care like its lane selection on the highway, like
Right.
or if it goes like 55 or 61 miles an hour, like you're annoyed when the car is driving 2 miles an hour over the speed limit and you're like in the driver's seat because you're like actively getting honked at. But
Yes.
like people will know like the RoboCab doesn't have a steering wheel when they pass the car on the highway. They'll just be like, oh, like kind of how they give the Waymo the excuse. Oh, it's just the Waymo, it's doing its like weird thing. It's like
Yeah.
stuck. People are just like laughing at it. People aren't laughing at you when you drive in the right lane doing 30 and a 50 in the Tesla and you're like supposed to be supervising it. Not that it does that anymore, but I
Yeah.
agree. They need to get it to that point. I mean, I enjoy being the guinea pig though. Like it's cool to like watch the tech improve, but they need to introduce it to the world at like a large scale in the unsupervised fashion for it to be like a major selling point of the car.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. 100%. Hans, did you want to jump in here with a topic before I switch it to a couple things?
I mean, I do think that there is still a lot of room left to go with even supervised as far
yeah,
as it being a monetizable feature and it being a selling point for the car. Like once, and I think really it's likely that 13 is pretty much there. It's just somewhat difficult because 13 is only available for hardware for cars for the
yep,
time being. It's kind of a limited sub segment of the overall fleet. But
yeah,
in a hypothetical future, a year from now, when there is a version of FSD that works on hardware 3 cars as well as version 13 works today, I think that they could put out like a free trial again, get a whole bunch of people who tried it in the past who didn't like it, and say, hey, you can have this functionality for $50 a month. In as your introductory rate, or $25 as your introductory, or like free for 3 months, and then it will be $100 a month or whatever. I think we
Yeah.
would see a huge uptick in the take rate on FSD. And even just that is like a huge signal in the overall, like that's one of the signals that I've been waiting for a long time, is when do we see, and I don't care if it's robo taxis or if it's supervised, but when do we see software revenue on
Yeah,
Tesla
on there.
hardware just hit that inflection point and start that steady growth profile? Because once it starts, it's not going to stop, because the technology just keeps getting better and better and better and better. Um, and yeah, and even if it's just the signal of, hey, people are adopting the technology and we're not even monetizing it super well. Like we're just trying to do the butts and seats thing,
Yep.
but people are sticking with it. Like they're using it. Like, if you see the free trial and you see the miles just like spike up of usage, like even that is a huge leading indicator of when we can actually expect this massive inflection point to just re-rate the entire margin profile of the company.
Yeah, I think their subscription like pricing model is like the worst thing of they need to change this. Like it started like 5 grand, right? For the purchase. Then it was like 8. And then it was like 15 for a short period of time. And now it's back to 8. That's like the purchase model, right? The FSD transfer thing is like some months you can do it, some months you can't. If you do it out of order on the app, you just lose it altogether. Like they need to decide this is how much the software is going to be. And we got to stick with this. You have a lot of upset people who have hardware 3 cars, who spent $15,000, who don't want to buy a new Model Y, and are stuck with a inferior product on a system that costs twice as much as it costs now. They have to solve that. Then the $99 a month thing is great, but like some people don't want to try a piece of software for $100 a month. And I know the free trials are a thing, they're rolling those out, sure. But it adds insult to injury when you get a free trial on your hardware 3 car and it's still stuck in the old version. I think what they need to do is allow you to pay for FSD for like a 24-hour period, like a really low prorated amount, like as if you were getting in a cab and paying a small rate to be in that cab. Like, for example, you want a road trip across a country, you only want FSD for 5 days or something like that. So they just divide the $99 by 30 days or whatever. You can pay on a per day rate or some sort of modified version. I think you would see a lot of people who only have used it for road trips realize how good the software is, and then be like, oh, I am going to pay the full month amount, or I am going to buy it and then own it at that point. Like that, those are like the small levers they can pull to really loop or really pull people in on these things.
I 100% think that we will see them get real flexible on the pricing and go to market strategy, exactly, along those lines, whether it's that or whether it's per mile pricing or something, after we pass that safety threshold that
Yeah,
Elon expects that we're going to pass with safer than human. I think that, the reason that we haven't seen those types of strategies is because the system is safe, but it's not as safe as they want it to be to like
right.
maximize the user base.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one person that uses it for like 12 hours, if they have one intervention, they'd be like, I'm good. I don't ever need this again.
Yeah, 100%. I think I'm glad you brought up those points, because I was on this channel for a little while before Elon announced that hardware 3 owners would get a free upgrade of the hardware if they can get
Yeah,
to unsupervised, which was, I think, a huge milestone and a very important one for hardware 3 owners. I think in addition to that, they need to give hardware 3 owners the ability to transfer their FSD to any new car that they want, their
Totally.
thing. Yeah. So like if I want to upgrade to a new Model Y, just let me transfer my FSD, because here's the deal. The robotaxi revenue that car can generate, okay, is ridiculous, regardless of what car has it. If it has an unupgraded hardware or whatever, that unit right there, it can generate so much money. And
Yep.
if you want to upgrade the hardware, great. If the person wants to take advantage of it in hardware 4, just let them transfer. Just let them transfer their thing to the new car, and then they
It should
can
be a permanent
use.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
permanent thing. Exactly. I think that would go a long way for hardware 3 owners as well. And I think it's
Totally.
something that benefits Tesla as well, because then that car that doesn't have the FSD thing that you take that token from and put it in the new car, you're still going to end up upgrading the computer on that car anyway, right? So then Tesla, I don't know, they can just buy it back or whatever, or whoever has it, they take it in for the upgrade when it's ready, and all of a sudden that's a cash flow generating machine.
Right.
So it's like the money's coming in at some point anyway.
Right.
So it's like,
It's a
why
tricky
not just,
message though, because
yeah,
once they say we will in perpetuity give every person who has a hardware 3 car the ability to transfer FSD to hardware 4, and if they don't have like or you could upgrade the hardware option free of charge, they've effectively said like we don't see a legitimate path to upgrading hardware 3 equipment, whether that be the cameras or the driving computer, to a fully capable, full self-driving car unsupervised like the hardware 4 cars. So I'm curious to see what they do. If it's just the cameras, or if it's the computer and the cameras, like that's a very different retrofit than just like swapping out the computer and just like plugging it in. They got to like take the car apart to switch the cameras out.
yeah. Go ahead, Hans.
Yeah. I think there's a couple different factors at play there. It wouldn't surprise me if they do give you, one transfer
Yeah.
once
Yeah,
robo-taxi services are live. Like, you get to transfer this one time to one car that is now like unsupervised robo-taxi capable. Um, but I like anyone who buys those new cars, you're not going to have to buy FSD or subscribe to FSD to add your car to the network. And so you're going to have the ability to earn revenue regardless of whether or not you have FSD when you are driving. And
That's
so
interesting.
like there's not really like a economic forcing function for Tesla to want someone to have FSD on the car so that it will be uh eligible to participate in the robotaxi network. Like, that's not going to be a factor. It'll just be like, do you want to have access to unsupervised self-driving when you're in the car and it's not on the network? That's really the
yeah,
only relevant use case.
yeah,
But I think that I would agree that, especially hardware 3 owners that bought FSD, in 2018, 2019, 2020, when it was $15,000, like you said, like, they should definitely get that transfer if they haven't already taken advantage of it, which I think a lot of people have, to a car that is eligible at some point in the future, just because
yeah.
that's the right thing to
Yeah.
do for the community.